Well, hello there. So glad to be back this week. Oh my goodness. So I have to tell you that we are late to the game with our tree. Okay, so we typically get our Christmas tree Thanksgiving weekend, and we just got it yesterday. And the funny thing is this, well, it's not funny, but Mark actually hurt his back. It's okay, he's fine, but he can't really lift anything. And he was in charge of going to pick up the tree. So I had no idea what size tree this was going to be. I knew I would be picking up the tree and putting it in the base myself. And so, as luck would have it, he did get a smaller than normal tree. We typically get a really big one. He got one that is perfect. Perfect. In fact, it is the most gorgeous tree we've ever had. So a little bit on the smaller side and just perfect. Oh my goodness, I'm in love. So we did a little bit of furniture rearranging. We got the tree up, did a little decorating. We are ready to go. Look at us. All right, so as I was thinking about the tree, one of the things that's been really cool is that I've been spending a lot of time doing some new content creation. So I actually have some pretty cool stuff coming out. I'm going to be doing lunch 365. So it's actually 365 days of lunches with my batch protein technique. And I also have my 52 weeks of dinner prep challenge. That's happening in my Transform program. So Transform is now a year long. This is my 72 CME coaching program. And we cover everything in the health realm. It is awesome. It is so cool. We start January 6th. We are currently now in our bonus program, which is our emotional regulation program. And this group is dynamic. I'm super excited to really dive in and really do the thing. And one of the things that really is cool is that I have never really provided this kind of meal prep strategy of what to make tonight. Because I want to give people flexibility and I want to give them freedom. And I really had to think through that because one of my core desires is freedom. So I don't really want anybody to tell me what to eat, but then maybe I do. And so what I realized is my people were really asking for more food ideas so that they can get protein in, so that they could be able to think less and eat healthier. And so I'm really, really just so excited, which really kind of dives into the topic for today. And we're going to be talking about nutrition tracking. And what I want to say is that nutrition tracking is actually biohacking. How funny is that? Nutrition tracking is biohacking. And how this came up is I was talking with a client and she was sharing with me how restrictive tracking was for her. Okay, because if you think about it, the times in the past where we have done nutrition tracking has been when we were going on a diet, if you will. So if you are an individual who has been on many diets, the idea of tracking can be quite triggering. Okay, and one of the first things that we do in my program is something called a nutrition audit. And it's essentially done so that we can see what are you currently doing to be able to get your current results. Okay, and then what do we need to ever so slightly tweak to give you new results? And this is really where I see amazing results. Okay, so this is all really, really fun. And then I said to my client, hey, what if you thought of tracking as biohacking? We essentially want to know what foods your body prefers. We want to know how much food your body needs to be where you currently are. We need to know how much food your body needs to lose body fat, how much it needs to gain muscle mass, for example. So this is all biohacking. So the definition of biohacking is gathering data to get a result. So gathering data that we then can say, hey, if we do this, we will get a certain result. Okay, so a lot of times people think that biohacking is super complicated. Okay, because if you think about the blood glucose monitors that people are wearing now, right? That's a form of biohacking, right? You're determining how your blood sugar responds to certain foods, right? Well, tracking is not that different. You are deciding how your body reacts to certain foods. And even if you're not seeing, blood sugar levels, you can certainly tell how your body feels. So if you eat a big bowl of pasta and then you want to fall asleep in like 5 minutes, your glucose probably got pretty high and you probably released a lot of insulin, okay? So it's really a cool way to kind of go back to basics. Okay, so why is nutrition tracking important? Well, if we do it up front, so when I say up front, I mean at the very beginning of a journey of nutrition, let's just say, then we are going to really be able to pinpoint what is necessary. And I like to go with baseline minimum. So I only want to tweak a little bit to get a big result, okay? And that is what nutrition tracking can help us with. And so one of the things that people often don't want to hear is that, upfront tracking for 7 days is going to be the most useful. And the reason why is because, remember, many people don't think of Monday the same way they do Friday. Okay, so Monday can be, salad and chicken, and Friday is pizza and subs. And what happens is, just by those changes, if we are trying to achieve a calorie deficit for fat loss, if we're over consuming calories on the weekends, for example, that can be a big blind spot. So a lot of times people feel deprived during the week because they're dieting. And then on the weekends, they feel so restricted from the prior week that they eat a lot. And what happens is they wind up being in this neutral calorie balance by the end of the week. Because weight loss actually depends on the average deficit, right? So it's not going to be the deficit you create in one day, okay? You have to have an additive amount of calories burned or in deficit of a certain amount of calories to lose 1 pound of body fat. Now, they used to say it was 3,500 calories, but there's a lot of different studies saying that it's probably not 3,500 calories. But in general, if we're saying that you need to burn or avoid eating 3,500 calories to lose a pound of fat, then we would say, okay, it's 3,500. And that's going to be cumulative because most of us don't burn 3,500 calories in a day unless you're an Olympic, not even Olympic, but you're a big time athlete, or not even a big time athlete. It can be somebody who has a really physical job where they're doing a lot of physical labor. But most of us don't burn more than 3,500 calories in a day. Okay. And so what that means, right, is that you can't really just burn off a pound of fat most likely in one day. I mean, it's possible, right? But that's not going to be the norm, if you will. Okay. So it's going to be kind of how we can have less calories over a period of time. That's for fat loss, obviously. Okay, so let's get back to the nutrition tracking. So how is it biohacking? Okay, so I think it's really interesting when people, for example, bump their protein and all of a sudden feel more energy. They just got great data. How about when they cut added sugar and they lose several pounds? That's going to be right there. Biohacking, more data right there. How about when they eat 1 meal versus 3 meals versus 5 meals? Okay, what happens to their body? Again, biohacking. So here's a really interesting thing. So I have been tracking because anytime I'm starting a new program, I really try to get maybe a couple weeks ahead and do my own stuff so that when the group starts, I've already done my own stuff, which has me kind of in the headspace to be where they're going to be, right? Because the thing is, if I have to track my food for 7 days, that's a certain mindset. So I can relate to how they have to be for that 7 days. And so it just makes me a more effective coach. So I always like to do what they're doing, but a little bit ahead of time. So if I am doing my nutrition auditing, okay, and I am doing that right now, before the holidays, okay? One of the things I noticed is that I am not super hungry in the mornings, okay? And what was happening is that I was getting behind on my protein once I hit lunch because I was trying to make up for the protein lunch, and then I was trying to fit a meal in between lunch and dinner. And typically when somebody does fasting, that's what they would do, right? If somebody's fasting, let's say it's a woman and the goal is 90 grams of protein, then she's going to have to get 90 grams in her window. And that's doable. You can definitely do that. For me, though, because I don't really identify as somebody who's fasting, I just was ignoring the fact that I was kind of fasting without realizing I was fasting. And it's not that I had lost muscle, but I just didn't feel as good in my workouts because I had been going on a couple days doing this. And so what I decided was that I was going to drink some clear protein. So I really like the whey clear protein. One Up is a really good brand. And actually, there's another brand at Target, and I will think of the name. It's really, really good. Anyways, it's whey protein, 20 grams of protein per scoop. So I make my coffee in the morning and I make my protein water. And that way I can drink my protein water right off the bat, non-negotiable. Then I fill a second one up with that 20 grams of protein powder and I sip it throughout the day. That's a guaranteed 40 grams of protein right there, okay, that I'm slowly infusing into my system throughout the course of the day. And then I make up the rest in whole foods. Now, I think I said a little bit back that I wasn't doing any supplements anymore. And that's correct. I was not. I got so sick of milky protein shakes. I do not want cookies and cream. I do not want vanilla latte, blah, blah, blah. I do not want anything that was, it just was not appealing anymore. So 2 weeks ago, this is very recent, I found this clear whey. Now they've had clear protein before where you could buy it in the bottle, but I hadn't really seen it marketed heavily where you can buy it, in a big tub like you would regular milky protein powder, we'll call it. And I found it, and I will tell you now I am doing supplements again because I was getting behind on my protein, number one. And number two, I enjoy this. I look forward to it. Okay, and here's the other thing. I'm getting better hydration in. Okay, I've noticed energy levels are better. Mental clarity is better. My workouts are stronger. My recovery is better. Okay, so that's biohacking. Okay, because here's how I biohacked. I was tracking my food and realized I was getting behind on my protein. But see, I didn't really realize I was because I was just busy and not really thinking about it. And that's what we all do, right? So then tracked, realized getting significant, wow, that was a big mouthful. I was getting significantly behind. And so then I said, okay, let's think of a solution. I could get up and eat eggs. I could, although I'm just not ready yet, right? I like to have my breakfast a little bit later. So I'm just hitting that protein drink and it's wonderful. It's like a lemonade. They have a lemon ice and it's just fantastic. So I've been doing that. I really think it's going to be super beneficial over the next couple of months. I think it'll take a little bit to kind of really see a difference, but I'm excited that there's this option. Then during my workouts, I'm doing essential amino acids. So another way of biohacking, right? Because there's a lot of mixed reviews on essential amino acids. And there's some people that think it's kind of nonsense. And then there's some people think that it really works. The one thing I will tell you is when I am using essential amino acids during my workouts, I definitely am not as sore. Okay, and that's partly due to the glutamine. So glutamine is definitely the amino acid that has been known to have a better help with recovery. And so I definitely have less muscle soreness. So I like to go with how my body is responding. Okay, so that is a form of biohacking because I started essential amino acids while I worked out, noticed less muscle soreness. So therefore I have this inside clue. Okay, so just by logging your food, okay, by tracking your food, and then piecing it together with the symptoms your body is having, that is amazing data. Okay, another example. Okay, last night I made this awesome soup. So it was chicken, it was lentils, it was carrots, celery, onion, navy beans, and spinach. Okay. And so this morning I noticed my stomach was definitely feeling a little bit off. So I thought through all the things I ate yesterday, and the only thing that I ate that's different than my norm is I don't eat a lot of legumes. I do not eat a lot of beans. I just don't. And I am pretty sure that is probably what caused a bit of my GI distress, right? So because I tracked, and yes, it was the night before, but I still tracked. Because I tracked, I could look back and say, you know, my stomach felt fine at 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 5 p.m. 7 p.m. I felt a little bloated. That was after dinner, but that can be normal. And then this morning, definitely felt it more. And so I'm like, okay, there you go. Biohacking, in that probably the most likely culprit is the food that I don't normally eat. Okay, and here's what it is. So it's not that I'm never going to eat lentils again. It's not that I'm never going to eat beans again, but I'm going to be more mindful to see, okay, did that happen again? Okay, so I want you to see that when you track your food, it's not about you're eating good or you're eating bad, or what can we cut or what can we add. Okay, it's supposed to give you data. Okay, another thing that I notice is that if I'm recording a lot of workouts in a row, let's say I'm doing 7 days straight recordings, right? And there's only so many workouts I can do in a day to record them. My appetite tends to spike significantly. Okay, so this happened during my tracking, and my calories, interestingly, went up. Naturally, I wanted to eat more calories. They went up. And so when I think about the activity that I did and probably the calorie burn associated with it, that's about how many additional calories my body naturally ate. So I ate intuitively, and that's what my body ate. And that's why it's so interesting that we are all, as humans, really good at maintaining our weight. Intuitively, you actually know what it takes to maintain your weight, okay? You actually know what it takes to lose weight, but it's pretty uncomfortable. It usually doesn't feel great, right? Usually your stomach is kind of growling and you get a little bit tired. If you're in late hunger, you get a little bit hangry, okay? Gaining weight, I would also say, is also, a little bit easier, but it can be uncomfortable. Physically uncomfortable, right? If you're going to a buffet every night and you're loading up on all the goods, okay, you're going to feel distended. You're not going to feel super energetic. Like, that's also uncomfortable, right? So where are we comfortable? Well, in the gray zone, okay, where you're nourishing yourself. Okay, you're not overly hungry. You are not overly full, but you're right perfect in the middle. Okay, the gray zone. Nobody likes the gray zone, because there's no certainty in the gray zone. We like to be all in or all out, but the gray zone, whoo, that seems really challenging. Now, here's the thing I'll tell you. Tracking, a lot of times people go into the all or none thinking with tracking, okay? They forgot to track for a day, so what do? They don't track for 2 years, okay? And remember, the principle of just make the next best decision also applies. Okay. The other thing too is you never have to actually track if you don't want to. It's just that if you want to have more insight into what your body is currently doing based on what you are giving your body, it's a no-brainer. Do it. In fact, all of my providers that take my nutrition training program, that's the first thing I tell them. I say, you're going to do motivational interviewing, number one. Number two, we're doing a nutrition audit. No matter what nutrition strategy they choose, we're going to do those two things first, okay? Because we have to know where our patient or client is coming in. We have to know what their thoughts and beliefs are. We have to know what they want. Okay, that's the first step. And then we can proceed from there. But our patients and clients will tell us exactly what we need to hear, okay? So it's all really cool. And what I'll tell you is that many of my clients that really resisted tracking, okay, they actually now really have embraced it when it's called a nutrition audit. But if they're tracking on a daily basis to try and reach a certain goal, I will tell you that it's possible, and you would think that you would need it more for weight loss, but I'll tell you that actually muscle gain probably requires more macro tracking, okay? Because to gain muscle, it takes extra protein, it takes extra carbs, it takes extra things, okay? And sometimes people have a lot of trouble trying to get all that protein in. However, if they track and they get the protein in and they see that they've had a positive result, they're going to continue to track because it taught them that they were getting enough, which gave them a positive result. And now tracking becomes a positive thing, okay? Versus you've been tracking and you haven't lost any weight. And so now you're going to have to cut your calories even more. Okay, that's the old thing. Like that's the old standard. Or somebody may have been advised to do their nutrition before and they brought it into their provider and maybe they didn't get positive feedback on it. And so it becomes kind of this negative spin. But I want to reassure you that this tool of tracking your nutrition is so incredibly powerful. Okay, so let me walk you through how I do a nutrition audit. Okay, I teach this in my nutrition training program. I also teach it in my Transform program. But what you're going to do is for 7 days, you're going to track everything you eat. Now, here's the big important point. You're not changing what you eat yet. You're just tracking what you eat for 7 days, okay? Then we average your average calories over 7 days, average protein over 7 days, average carbs, average fat, average fiber, and average added sugar, okay? And then I have specific parameters for each, and then based on your own unique makeup, we actually advise what your ideal protein, ideal carbs, fat, your macros, okay? But before we even do that, okay, getting that nutrition audit and wiping out the blind spots. So some of the biggest blind spots are not enough protein, too much added sugar, and too much added fat, okay? Half of us don't even realize that we're doing this. So one time back in the day when I was still in my dieting phases, I was doing intermittent fasting and low carb. And I had no idea how I could be so hungry and I didn't lose 1 pound. Okay. And then I decided I would track. I was eating probably 150 grams of dietary fat. I typically do not see weight loss when individuals are eating more than 100 grams of dietary fat. In fact, for most people, it's 80 or less. Okay. And so it was a huge wake-up call for me. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not broken. I'm just eating too many grams of fat, which is bumping up my calories, which is putting me over my maintenance, right? Or it's keeping me at my maintenance. So either I'm maintaining or I'm gaining, but I'm not losing. All right, so that was a really, really powerful wake up. Okay, so I want you to realize that, nutrition audit is a really simple way to see it. You track, you calculate, you see where you are, and then you go ahead and decide where do you want to take your goals. And so I usually talk about goals in terms of muscle maintenance with fat loss or muscle gain, okay? And then I have a very specific protocol for your protein for muscle gain, your protein for fat loss. We pair that with your carbs, your fat. We can decide to do intuitive eating with all that information. We can do my signature program, Mindful Macros, where you don't count, weigh, or measure, okay? So you track once, and then we learn how to do it with our eyeballs, or we can actually go ahead and track macros. But all of those are available, and the thing that I love to do the most is use a combination of all three, because all three techniques are extremely useful, okay? So that's how you would start the process of a nutrition audit, and that's how you'd start getting some really, really great data so you can really utilize this biohacking process. All right, so I want to know from you, how do you feel about tracking? Do you track? When you think about it in terms of biohacking, does it change the way that you think about tracking? And I want to also know that if you had all the information of why you're getting the result that you are with all the tools that were available, would you choose to know? Or maybe you're happy as is. Interesting to think about. All right, my friends. So I want you to check out all the things we have coming to you. So we actually have a webinar, okay? So I have created a webinar. It's being hosted on December 30th, January 2nd, and January 4th. It is called Optimal Weight Loss Strategies for Busy Women Physicians. I've actually never done a webinar like this before, okay? As women physicians, we have a lot of unique obstacles. Not a lot of time, okay? Not a lot of energy. Not enough sleep, whole lot of stress, really fighting, between taking care of ourselves and our patients and our families. And so this webinar is actually going to discuss my top 5 tools for women physicians to have success with their weight loss. It is so good. It is going to be the principles that I teach, and I cannot wait to share them. So you can go ahead in our show notes. You can sign up for the webinar. Our first one is December 30th. You also have the option to join 2 additional dates. Same webinar, 3 dates, January 2nd, January 4th. It's going to be just a really, really awesome conversation. So definitely sign up. We're going to, again, post the link in the show notes. Invite some friends. This is going to be a really, really great way to start off the new year. We have our Transform 9.0 program enrolling. We have our Total Fitness program. We have the wait list open for our nutrition training and also our retreat in Berkshire's Miraval. And then we also have our beginner strength training. So lots for you to pick from. We are enrolling Transform. That's our next program to go. We start January 6th. And we'd love to see you there. So as always, give us a message in our inbox. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, we'll talk soon.